Welcome back to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. Today's guest is someone who defines what it means to serve. From 4 years in the Army to working at 3 firehouses at once to becoming a nurse in hospice care, Matthew's story is full of grit, heart, and a whole lot of adrenaline. After facing career ending injuries, PTSD, and addiction, he found healing through therapy, faith, and the power of helping others. Get ready for laughs, real talk, and one heck of a journey. This is a story of pain, purpose, and the will to keep showing up. Let's get started.
You're listening to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice, where we honor the bravery of the first responders and the families who stand behind them. Real people, real stories, real heroes. This is 8158. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of 8158 Podcast, Stories of Sacrifice. Today's guest, we have Matthew Tamplin. He is EMS, and he is a good friend of one of my good friend's cousins, and we're going to get to hear his story and some of his experiences as well. Let's welcome Matthew. How's it going, Matthew?
Good. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. Just another wonderful day at work. It was a long day for me, but you know, that's what happens when you have a full-time job trucking.
Right.
So how's your day been going?
Well, I was actually off today, and it was 75 degrees, so I was out enjoying the sunshine.
Oh, look at you. Enjoying the sunshine. We've been getting a little bit of sprinkles here and there, but it's still sunny. It's kind of weird having rain and sun at the same time.
Better look for the rainbow.
Yeah. Didn't see any of those, but there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel. So in opening up, can you take us back to the very beginning? What was it like growing up in your small town of 1,500 people?
Well, everybody knew everybody. You go to school, you get in trouble, your parents knew about it before you ever got home. I started kindergarten with the same people I graduated high school with, and I knew each one of them on first and last name basis. So you pretty much know your entire community.
So pretty much everybody knew everybody's business.
Right.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine. I've never lived in a town that small. Glendive is probably the smallest town I've been in. Now it's about 5,000 people. And even still, a lot of people knew everybody's business.
Right.
So what led you to join the Army? And what did you take away from your life as a service member?
Well, at that point, I was kind of just wandering through life and had no real goal, no real aim, and just needed direction. So that's when I looked into joining the Army and really enjoyed the experience. I was able to learn a lot. I was able to find out who I was. They knew how to push you in a way that you didn't even know you could be pushed, and it allowed me to grow up.
So in a way, it kind of forced you to come out of your shell and to kind of grow up and mature.
Right.
as a person.
Right.
Yeah, I imagine the military tends to do that to people. Yeah, I was looking into getting to the military myself, but while I was in the process of that, I got in trouble. So unfortunately, that was off the table.
Well, some people it was military or jail.
Yeah, yeah. Back then, I didn't get that opportunity. Unfortunately, I wish I did.
Right.
You know, I think I would have done really well in the military. I probably would have made some rank. Um, I did really well in structured environments and stuff like that. So yeah, I think I would have done excellent. But that wasn't in the cards for me, so I had to choose a different route, a different path. So,
Right.
but life is funny that way, and we just kind of take what we get, and we either learn from it or we keep making the same mistakes.
Right.
All right. So, moving on, you didn't go into EMS, paramedicine, or fire school until you were 32 years old.
Correct.
What sparked you to change at that stage in your life?
I was married, and I was in a position. I had got my wife through school, through nursing school, and the agreement was that once I got her through nursing school, I could decide what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I was batting it around, and medical was always something that I knew about. And then you see on TV all the dramatization of EMS and this and that and everything else, and it's like, well, I could do that. Um, and then you question, well, do I want to go into EMS? Do I want to be a nurse? Do I want to be a doctor? I don't want to go to school that long to be a doctor. I don't want to wipe people's butts for a living, so I don't really want to be a nurse. So EMS it is.
Wow. So, what was that experience like for you, having to go through the classes and everything?
The classes themselves were not challenging, um, especially going into the initial EMT. Um, Basic common sense pretty much got you through the class. And then once you obtain that degree, then you see what the real world is, and it's totally different than everything you imagine. It's not the glamorization on the TV is it's 100% adrenaline all the time, and that's just not the case. It's like anything else. It's the 20/80 rule, where 20% is really really adrenaline pumping, and then the 80% of the time you're doing mundane stuff.
And that's with the firefighting as well.
Correct.
Okay. So you had some intense moments, but not a whole lot most of the time.
Correct.
Okay.
Being in a rural department, you didn't have the um, amount of calls, but the distance from the hospital added to the intensity of the call.
Okay. Must have been really far away.
It could be as much as 45 minutes to the nearest hospital.
Oh, that's really close to that golden hour.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be pretty scary. It now you were volunteer being in a rural area.
I started out as a volunteer, yes, and then as time went on, the the volunteers kind of going by the wayside. So I went to part time, and then part time at multiple departments, and then on to paramedics and more advanced stuff. So
Okay. So now you mentioned multiple departments. You work for 3 firehouses at the same time. What was that like? Is that normal, or is that something that you would normally do?
well, for someone that was too old to get full time, because I couldn't be, uh, there was a cutoff age, so I couldn't go full time because of my age. So anyone that was in that boat worked a lot of part time departments. The bad part is you don't get benefits and all that fun stuff. You just kind of are at the mercy of the system. Um, I would work one. I would go to one firehouse for 12 hours, get off work there, go to another right straight to another house for 24 hours, get off work there and go straight to another house for 24 hours, and then finally go home for 36 and start all over.
Oh my gosh. I couldn't even imagine being away that long. It's like going from one job to the next, and then I imagine there's probably breaks in between, so you're not constantly on a call, hopefully.
There is, and when you're in it, you think that you're getting lots of rest. But it wasn't actually until I got out of it that I realized how much I wasn't resting.
Right.
Because even though you're sitting and resting and not doing something, your mind is always going of what's coming next.
Right. So your mind doesn't have a chance to process or rest or do anything but to wonder what's going to happen.
Right.
When's the shoe going to drop? Do you remember your very first call as a firefighter or EMT?
I do.
Okay. What stands out about that call?
Well, it was a double fatal.
Okay.
It was a fall. It was in November. Rainy fall day, dreary. A car pulled out into the intersection trying to see if it was clear because it was a bad intersection. Um, an SUV hit them, running about 80 miles an hour, driven by a
Oh,
16-year-old kid. Killed the woman instantly. But the gentleman that was in the passenger seat broke his seatbelt, put his whole body in the floorboard of the car. The gentleman had Alzheimer's, didn't know what was going on, so he was very out of control and scared to death. And he didn't die on the scene, but he died shortly after.
oh my
So
gosh.
now I see this 16-year-old kid that's not really hurt that now is going to have to live with this the rest of his life.
So the kid wasn't drinking, he was just speeding. He was just being a dumb teenager, basically.
Right.
Okay.
And he got caught.
Oh, he got caught, all right.
I mean,
Oh,
sometimes it's better to get caught by the police.
yeah. It's sad to see that 2 lives were lost, actually 3. Obviously he probably got into a lot of trouble for that. I don't know, did he get vehicular homicide for that, or
I
manslaughter or
don't know
anything?
what happened. I made it a I was consciously trying not to wonder what was happening to people after they left my care because I was afraid that that's all I would focus on.
Okay.
And I learned really early in my career to forget.
Yeah. How did that impact you mentally, seeing that situation?
At first, it's you don't even notice it. You know, it's kind of like the death by a thousand cuts. You don't notice the traumas. You don't notice the effects right away. But as they continue to build up and build up and build up, you start to have, I don't know what the right word is. You start to question everything.
Okay. So what do you say you would question about life or religious
Why?
beliefs or why? Okay.
I mean, and it's not, there's no follow up from why. It's just you look at situations and you just say why. You know, who loves these people? Could anything love this? How could this situation happen? Why is this happening?
Right.
And you just start to, your mind just starts to collapse on itself.
Yeah, I imagine the compounding traumas would kind of wear on you a little bit. The constant wondering why. Yeah, it's definitely not a pretty situation to see a lot of these things, and uh, I just don't. I couldn't even imagine. I just couldn't. So
And then it was always the same. You'd meet someone. What do you do for a living? Well, I'm a paramedic. Oh, I could never do that job. Takes a special
mhm,
person to do that job. No, it just takes someone that's not afraid to do it.
right.
I mean, uh, sometimes it's the hardest part was being for people to say how proud they were of you
Hmm.
because you weren't proud of yourself.
So, explain to me why you weren't proud of yourself about uh, choosing your profession.
Because it's human nature is to seems to be to concentrate on the negative.
Okay.
And if you have negative outcomes or you have multiple negative outcomes in a row, or you those are what you focus on, and you just start to feel worthless because what could I have done differently? How could I have saved this person? How what could I have done? And there may
Right.
not been anything you could have done, but your brain just says, well, that's what you're here for.
Right. Yeah, I definitely can imagine that probably affects you mentally as well. Uh, always wondering what if, or I should have done this, or I should have done that. Unfortunately, like you said, a lot of the times there's nothing you can do. Sometimes it's out of your hands.
And you have lots of time to think about it afterwards.
Yeah. That's probably the scariest part about that. It's too much time to think about it.
Yeah.
Um, Now, going through that process, you didn't have any outlet or anybody to talk to about getting any of that uh, stuff out. Like, I wouldn't say counseling, but just like a confidant or a friend or a fellow
I, I
firefighter.
I did have my wife who was also an EMT,
Hmm.
but she didn't have near the experience as I did because she worked as a nurse, so she made obviously more money as a nurse than she would as an EMT. So she understood to a certain degree, but she hadn't really experienced it. So I try to talk to her, and then it would frustrate me because then I'd have to explain to her instead of
Yeah.
just being able to talk. And then, you know, you you start to go out with the guys after work and oh, let's go get a beer. And then one beer turns into three beers, and then three beers turns into 10 beers, and then you're drinking all the time. and you learn to use that as a crutch to escape the reality.
Right. Yeah, we find that a lot when people are dealing with such traumas like that. They use alcohol or drugs as a coping mechanism to, deal with the issues, and it's unfortunate. I mean, I did the same thing. Use drugs and alcohol as a coping mechanism, and it's not obviously it's not the healthiest way to deal with your problems or issues.
And the worst part is that you're gonna come back with a hangover, and then you're gonna have to deal with
Right.
it because it didn't go away.
Yeah, it's still there. It doesn't go away, and a lot of that stuff remains. It doesn't just disappear because it's still locked in your memory banks. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Um, so I'm going to go ahead and move on now. In all your time crawling through trucks and dealing with fire hoses and emergency scenes, what's one of the funniest or wildest stories that you can share? PG, of course.
Trying to think here. The funny to me may not be funny to everybody because we kind of have a warped sense of humor doing what we've done.
Yeah.
But I can remember. One of the things that I found the funniest. We had a fireman that had just started that day, and we got dispatched for a woman that was um, not acting right. It was another cold day. It was 50 degrees outside, rainy, fall afternoon. This woman was out in an intersection, laying on the ground, soaking wet, too drunk to move. Hypothermia has already kicked in, and she doesn't know who she is, so she doesn't know who we are, and she's fighting. So I'm like, what am I going to do with this mess? I'm by myself. So I called for help, and the chief, they get a fire at the same time we're going on this. So he drops off this brand new firefighter to me who has no idea what to do. And I was like, well, I guess we're going to pop your cherry one way or the other. And I said, whatever you do not turn your back on this woman. She will hit
Right.
you. And he says, okay. And he turns around to get gloves. And as he turns back around, this woman just cold cocks him right in the nose.
Oh,
Like,
Jesus.
I just told you, don't turn your back. But we ended up fighting her all the way to the hospital. And she's belligerent. She's F this and F that. And we get to the hospital, and she's yelling at the staff. She's yelling at everybody. And of course, we had already had IV access and everything. And I'm trying to tell the doc what's going on, and the doc sees this mess, and he's already pulling up the ketamine.
Uh-oh.
And he tells the woman, he says, if you be belligerent to my crew one more time, I'm going to put you out. And she says, "Fa," and he hits that needle, and she just out. So I found that, I found that to be exhilarating.
Couldn't even get the word out. It was just
Right?
lights out. Yeah,
I
that
said
would be
ketamine.
funny.
He actually hit her with a Tomadate. I apologize.
Okay, I was gonna say that's some strong stuff, some tranquilizer, horse tranquilizer.
But yeah, it was, in my warped sense of humor, that was hilarious.
Well, at least you didn't have to deal with that mess anymore.
Right?
uh, so you said that you've helped people in their absolute worst days. Was there ever a moment where someone made you laugh unexpectedly during the crisis?
Yep. And eh, you try to be professional, and people just don't follow the book.
Okay.
So we had gotten dispatched to a man down, CPR in progress. This was at the um, farthest in our district. It took us 15 minutes one way to get there. So we're already way behind the eight ball. So we're flying out there as fast as we can. I was in the back trying to grab all the stuff and have it ready so we could just hit the ground running and take over CPR if that's what was being done, because just because they said CPR was in progress doesn't necessarily mean good CPR is in progress.
Right.
Um, so we get there, and it's a beach, and there's people everywhere on this beach. Like, where's the patient? You're looking for someone laying on the ground. He's sitting over there. Okay, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, they got someone back. So we get him in the back of the truck and start talking to him. What's going on? What happened? He says, well, I wasn't feeling very good, and um, so I sat down, and they told me to go ahead and lay down, and then they started beating on my chest. I kept telling them stop, and I was like, what? What? Why are they doing CPR on someone that's talking? And you just can't help it. You just like you can't make sense of it, and there's nothing else you can do but laugh. So me and it just so happened that the girl that I was working with that day was a CPR instructor, and she still uses that in her class. That if they try to refuse CPR, they probably don't need it.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're talking, your heart's beating, obviously. Yeah. What's the rule? It's only the people that don't have a heartbeat. You're supposed to do CPR on them, or
Well, that's generally a rule, but it doesn't always happen that way.
it doesn't. They tell you to stop hitting them on the chest, you might want to stop.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I couldn't even imagine. That's crazy. I can imagine, what he was thinking, like, what the heck's going on here?
Right?
Um, so you went through some major injuries, and what happened? You had picked up a 350-pound patient. What happened after that?
So this was a regular patient that we picked up a lot. She had MS, and she would fall out of bed, and then she'd want us to come out, pick her up, put her back in bed, and then we'd go home until she fell again. It just so happened this was the third time we were out there that day, and we were going to, because it was the third time, we were going to make her go to the hospital because, obviously she's not in a safe situation.
Mhm.
I was the first one in the door, and I'd picked her up several times before, so I just reached down to pick her up, and I felt pop. I herniated 4 discs in my lower back and rotated my pelvic girdle,
Ouch.
and I didn't walk right for 6 weeks.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it's not something that just goes away. So I still feel the effects of it, and the older I get, the more I feel them.
Now, is that why you got into nursing? Is that what led you into it?
That's one of the things that helped me get into nursing. Yes,
Okay.
just the constant brutality to the body. You know, climbing in and out of trucks, pulling hose, um, doing all the physical labor that goes along with it. That you picking up people in all kinds of positions and just not having proper bending because you just can't possibly in those situations, and it has a toll on your body.
Yeah. Uh, so after your injury, what was it like, going from full tilt to emergency work and then not being able to do anything, not even be able to walk?
It was a big frustration, especially during that time, and you start to wonder, you know, the first couple of days it's like, oh, I needed a break anyway. And then after the first couple of days has gone by and you're still having difficulty walking, it's like, is this going to be permanent? And then you start to question that, and that tends to be the focus of your brain, because am I now disabled?
Hmm.
And fortunately, I was able to overcome that injury and walk normal. But that's always, at any given time, you can be in that situation where it's a career-ending injury.
Right. Fortunately, that didn't happen. Thankfully, you were able to overcome that because you had mentioned your chiropractic therapy
Right?
that helped your recovery.
Yes.
Okay. Uh, how did you stay motivated through that pain?
Um, you learned in the military that pain's what keeps you alive, lets you know you're alive.
Okay.
Without pain, you're not living. So, I mean, that was the easy part.
Yeah. Yeah. Pain lets you know you're still alive, but back pain sucks.
Yes, it does, and it really screws up your golf game too.
Yeah, imagine it does. Yeah. So overall, going through chiropractic therapy, that definitely did the trick,
Yes,
thankfully.
and I've always kind of leaned more towards holistic than letting someone just up and cut on you.
Hmm.
I mean, if we we learned to triage, and you the acronym is KISS, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
So, I started with the most simple thing, and I figured if that didn't work, then we'd look at other options. And fortunately, we didn't have to look at the other options.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you on the chiropractic thing. That's helped me out quite a bit. Uh, I've done the chiropractic stuff, and because in my family we have degenerative disc disease. I don't know if that's hereditary, but I think it is because a lot of my family members have it. And I know my back went out, and it goes out from time to time. If I just move just the wrong way, it goes out. And then I have
Right.
to go, I'm hunched over and I got to go see the chiropractor. And they get me straightened up, and, it works pretty good.
Yeah.
I'd rather have that than to have to go to surgery and have them pull all my guts out and then do surgery through my stomach to my back.
Right. Well, and then you're never the same. And once they cut those muscles, they heal, but they're never as strong as they once were.
Right.
So
Yeah, exactly. Have you ever done like dry needling or anything like that?
no.
I've tried that like with stiff muscles and stuff. Uh, I would go and they would take these needles. The first time I did it, the doctor stuck the needle in one of my muscles, and it's like acupuncture,
Yeah.
but they stick the needle directly into the muscle where they're knotted up, and then they twist them around to kind of break up a lot of the lactic acid in the muscles. We will return after this quick ad break.
The William H. Bill Butler Jr. Foundation is on a mission to honor first responders and support those who serve. We provide scholarships for families who have lost a hero in the line of duty, offer second chances to juvenile offenders who are working to rebuild their future, and help new recruits pursuing careers as first responders. Through generous donations and the sale of merchandise, we're building a community that uplifts, empowers, and creates lasting impact. You can be a part of this mission as well. Visit 8158podcast.com to donate or shop today. Together, we can support those who serve, honor those we've lost, and give hope to those who need it most. Behind every badge is a story, and behind every story is a sacrifice. This is the 8158 podcast, where we honor the lives and legacies of first responders and their families. If our mission speaks to your heart, if these stories move you like they move us, join us on Patreon. For just $5 a month, you'll get ad-free listening, exclusive merchandise, behind-the-scenes content, and video episodes only available to our patrons. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement, and you can be a part of it. Support us at patreon.com/8158podcast. Let's continue to share the stories that deserve to be heard.
Supposed to relax the muscles, and he stuck it in there, and then he pulled it out, and he said, "Your muscles bent the needle. They're so tight."
Oops.
But it's kind of a weird feeling because they stick it in and your muscle starts twitching,
Yeah.
and then after a while they stop twitching and then they start relaxing. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the very nature of the muscle itself. I mean, I can understand especially if you put something in it, and then the muscle tries to actuate and it can't because there's something in the way. I guess it would be an incredibly strange feeling.
Yeah. But it definitely works. I mean, you're sore afterwards, and then your muscles start to relax enough to where you're not so kinked and tensed up. I thought it was kind of weird, but it's actually stress relieving.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, uh, so you personally have been open about your struggles with PTSD and addiction. What role did therapy and church play in your healing process?
Therapy was the start. Therapy and realizing that I had a problem. Because family was always important to me. Family is why I went to work. And I was losing my family of my own doing. So I knew that I had to do something. I knew I had to do something drastic in order to fix what I was breaking. And that was therapy, which was allowing me to get the poison out. You know, all the stuff that I had pushed down for years, it allowed me to get that poison out and allowed me to start to heal. And then being able to find God, even though obviously he's never been lost, but for me to find him, him as a personal savior and find Jesus Christ as a personal savior to fill that void instead of filling it with alcohol and more just going right back to where I'd come from.
Right. Yeah. Definitely having the love of Christ in your life definitely changes your perspective, and he helps you through a lot of things that you wouldn't think would be possible.
Well, I can tell you that at one time I could never have possibly had this conversation with you.
I can imagine seeing the stuff that you've seen.
And now looking back, I understand what dead is. And that's what I was.
Yeah,
And Jesus has made me alive.
that's awesome. Brought you back to life.
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely a wonderful feeling knowing that your life has purpose and it has meaning. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So if you could go back and talk to yourself at the start of your EMS fire career, what would you say to yourself?
I don't know. And the reason I say this is everything happens for a reason. All the pain happened for a reason. All the frustration happened for a reason. And it all led me to who I am today. And I like
Okay.
who I am today. So I don't know if I would actually say anything to myself.
Do you think
That
that your role and seeing this stuff kind of pushed you and led you to your beliefs?
absolutely. You question seeing what you see, seeing the evil, seeing the darkness, seeing the drugs and alcohol tear so many people up, you becoming a victim of the drugs and alcohol, um, seeing the darkest side of humanity makes you question why. Again, why? And when there's a light finally shed on it and you see that this isn't what life is supposed to be, you have no choice but to go towards the light.
Right.
And I can I try to encourage everybody I come across that if you're living in darkness, there is a light.
Hmm.
No matter how small it feels at that moment, no matter how much you want to fight it, there's still someone that loves you.
Exactly. It may not be a person in your life, but there is a Father in heaven that still loves and cares about you. So, you know, I, I wouldn't expect a lot of people to understand that, but you know, because there are a lot of people that are wandering around in the darkness, trying to find their way. Uh, you know, God is not lost. We are the ones that are lost,
Right.
and it's up to us to find, to allow God to come into our lives to shed light and not wander in that darkness. It's definitely an amazing feeling.
So I don't want to go too much into a sermon, but I can remember a sermon that I'd like to share a little bit of. My pastor was talking about he believes that God made us 99.5% whole. and that 0.5% to seek out.
Mhm.
And we as human beings, we seek out everything. We seek out pleasure. We seek out alcohol. We seek out drugs. We seek out sex. We seek, thinking that that's what we want. That's what we want. Until finally we find the light, and that's what we've been seeking the entire.
Right.
And then once
Exactly.
you find that light, once you find that love, all the rest of it just dissipates. It doesn't matter anymore.
Exactly right. It makes total sense. Spend our whole lives seeking out other things, and then, most of us find the right thing, and then we realize that none of it, none of the other things fulfilled that void that was missing. So, yeah, it's definitely an amazing feeling. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on, and so now you had spoke about doing hospice care, and how has your definition of making a difference evolved?
Dignity. I have figured out that everybody deserves dignity.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if you were evil. It doesn't matter if you were a good person. It doesn't matter if you were the greatest person alive. Everybody deserves dignity, even in their last moments.
Yeah.
And that's what I strive for. Giving this person, if it's only their loved ones that see that they're worth something, that's what is important.
Now, the people that you deal with in hospice, do you think they appreciate that sense of dignity that you share and that compassion that you show them?
Yes. And it's not something that you can fake. It's, you either have it or you don't. You
Yeah.
either have compassion or you don't. And when someone is hurting, especially family members, because the majority of my patients can't talk to me anymore. But when these family members see that I'm doing the things not because I'm supposed to, but because it's the right thing to do, then that makes them have a much better feeling of their loved one is being taken care of, and they can go home and rest and prepare for the next day, because the
Right.
next day may be the last time they see, and they
Right.
want to be, I don't know if mentally alert is the right word, but be prepared for that moment and not, have a good night's rest or a good couple of hours rest, knowing that their loved one was taken care of.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely a good sense of security to knowing that there is somebody there that cares and that's willing to take that role and care for the loved one. And I bet you that takes a lot of burden off of the families of these individuals.
Yes.
Um, what's something most people misunderstand about hospice nursing?
They always, everybody I come encounter with, and I tell them that I'm a hospice nurse, oh, I could never do that. How can you deal with the sadness all the time? And the best way that I can put it is, I'm not emotionally attached. Yes, I get to know these people over the days or weeks that I have them, but I was not born into this family. I don't have the years of memories to go with them,
Hmm.
and I am able to I am able to keep my feelings in check enough to make to allow the loved ones to mourn instead of me mourn.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. I know we had a guest who had his perspective was because he's a paramedic, and his perspective on it is seeing a lot of what they see, like, whether it's somebody's last dying breath or somebody giving birth. He thought he sees it as this very sacred thing that most people don't get to see,
Right,
and it's something that's very sacred, and because these are these people's last moments or their first moments,
right.
and so
And
that's
it's
how he copes with it.
and it's kind of an honor.
Yeah.
And I I, I don't know I don't know what to say, and as I don't, hmm, I don't know, I'm kind of at a loss for words right this second, but it it, it is it does feel like an honor to be that person, to be able to be that person, and to see it in a black and white sense.
Hmm.
Because life is and death is.
Right.
It's all one natural phenomenon. And to be able to see both ends of the spectrum for what they truly are is, I hate to say it this way, but it's beautiful to see life come full circle.
Right.
And if you think about it, the only way for humanity to move on is for death to happen.
Right.
You see that in the plants, you see it in the seeds, you see it in the everything around us. There's a certain life cycle that without that death, life can't happen.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely, there is a cycle, and everything has a life cycle, and I know a lot of people would like to live forever, but I don't think I'd want to live forever, not in this condition.
Right?
Not the way things are today, not these days, at least not yet anyways. Maybe afterwards.
Yeah. Once the once the perfection comes about.
Yeah. Yeah, when everything's made perfect again, then we'll talk about it. uh, so you had mentioned at one time wanting to be a traveling nurse someday. What's the dream spot you've loved to work in as far as traveling nurses?
Um, I think the dream spot would be in like a third world country,
Okay.
because I think the idea of being able to help where they can't find any other help, to be the person to be able to help when it's miles and miles and miles between villages and and miles behind between hospitals, and they have no other option to be able to be that person to keep them from, you know, and whether it's as a hospice nurse, whether it's as another kind of nurse, be that inner what's the right word? Be the in between of being the difference between a good outcome or a bad outcome, whatever
Okay.
that may be.
Or at least just being there for comfort.
Right.
That's definitely a noble cause, like kind of like a humanitarian type of mission. We know these third world countries don't get a lot of assistance. Uh, it's unfortunate, and everybody deserves to get help. Unfortunately, that's not how the world works.
Right.
And I hope and pray that someday that comes about and that you're able to do that to help people out in these places that need the help.
I've that's the more I get into it, the more I feel that as a calling. And I actually just I think my wife thought I was kidding with her, but I asked her the other day if she wants to sell everything and move to a third world country.
Yeah.
And she says, "You think I'm random?"
Well, it's obviously been on your mind for quite some time. So
Yes.
it's not like something that just popped in your head.
Right.
It's definitely eating away at you. Not like necessarily eating away at you, but it's driving your inner being to want to go help. It's like a
Right.
nagging feeling.
And when I got into the medical, that's basically the driving force is to help people. So, I
Yeah,
mean, it might not be the same as it was when I first started, but it's still there.
right. Same situation, just in a different manner, in a different place. Um, so, looking back, was there a moment where you were exactly uh, where were you meant to be?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Uh, at what moment did you know where you were exactly where you were meant to be?
I would have to say it was a case of CPR. And we went to a dialysis center. He coded in the dialysis center. We got him a heartbeat back. We flew him, you know, and you kind of forget about him. And 4 days before Christmas, I go and pick him up, the same gentleman, for something. I don't even remember what we went out on him for, but it was something minor that he just needed to go to the hospital and have something done and then go home. And I thought, you know, I helped him have another Christmas. And that's when I realized that I was supposed to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely like one of those things, it was a sacred thing. And you saved that man's life and you gave him another breath of life to enjoy another year of Christmas. And, obviously that time with his family probably means a lot to him.
Right.
And, it's not it's not an easy task to go through a lot of the things that you've gone through and then yet see something so special
Right.
come out of it.
But at the same time, my family and our faith as a family has grown out of it as well. And we are very strong because of it.
That's awesome. So they've seen something positive as well.
Mhm.
So you've seen the full spectrum of, the Army and fire and EMS, as well as nursing. What has been the most rewarding part of all of it?
Being able to teach my little girls. Being able to teach my little girls love
Yeah.
through action. I can't think of a better lesson for anyone to teach their children.
So through action, you mean by being a loving, kind, caring person that looks after other people, or
That
in
puts
that
someone
way?
else's needs before mine.
Okay.
By putting their needs before mine, by putting my patient's needs before mine, by putting my wife's needs before mine, for them seeing that I sacrifice for the ones that I love to show them I love them. And teaching them that how to do that so that they can be prepared for their spouse to start the cycle all over again.
Right. That's definitely a beautiful thing. I imagine it's very rewarding for you uh, to be a part of their upbringing and to be that nurturing uh, father that you are.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Now, if your coworker gave you a nickname based on your personality or habits on the job, what would it be?
Oh, I don't know. This is still PG, right?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
No, I was kind of a hard nose at times, and my philosophy was that if you were going to break, you were going to break in the firehouse, and I was very hard on people, and I would try to break them because if I could break you in the firehouse, you have no reason to be on a scene.
Right.
So, I was called asshole quite often, but there was always a method to my madness.
So it wasn't to try to intentionally get rid of people, it was just to test their mettle.
Right, because I learned early on that this is a job that until you get that first bad call, you don't really know if you can do it.
Yeah.
You know, and until you see something that's going to give you nightmares, you don't know.
Yeah.
And I've seen people break on scenes, and it's not pretty.
That's not a good time to break.
Nope.
There's a job that needs to be done.
And That's unfortunately the nature of the beast. Is you can't prepare someone in school for it. You can't prepare someone in a lecture hall or in a scenario. You can't prepare for it.
It's got to be a life experience,
Right.
something hands-on. You're saying,
And you have to have that. It really is, you are the one between their life or their death.
right? Yeah, I mean, I can imagine you can't break under stress when you're dealing with a crisis situation, and if you're having a breakdown when somebody's life is at risk, that's not doing anybody any good.
Right.
That's potentially dangerous for everybody, whether it's your firefighters or EMS or the patients. Excuse me.
And we all want to go home at the end of the day.
Exactly. Yeah, that's one of the things that we talk about a lot. That's what kind of started this podcast. Is we, after my cousin was killed, we wanted to let people know that our first responders are people too. They have families. They got people that rely on them. They have people that love them, and people that want them to come home every night. And we just wanted to shine light on that aspect of it. Um, Obviously, we've kind of progressed from that, which I'm grateful and thankful for because it's helped a lot of people dealing with mental illness or mental health issues, or having to go through PTSD and just not having an outlet. So we're giving people that outlet to kind of speak their piece and kind of let their stories out so other people can hear and understand that these are people too. We're not these you're not alone. You're not alone. I'm not alone. A lot of us go through a lot of things, and a lot of us have a common ground. So it's kind of like what we're trying to do is show some common ground and shed light on our first responders and show you guys love and appreciation that you deserve.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we definitely respect your service, what you guys done, men and women alike, especially in the military service. We honor our military servicemen and women as well. I have family that have been in the service. My grandfather's on both sides of my family. My cousin, obviously, he was in the military. My uncle Bill, he was in the military. My uncle Frank was in the military, as well as my first wife's son. He was in the military. So, we pretty much grew up around that stuff. And, a lot of my family have been in law enforcement. My grandfather was a detective, and cousin was a police officer, stuff like that. My dad, when I was young, he was a firefighter. So it's nothing new for us. It's just unfortunate that I did not follow the footsteps.
Yeah.
I was just too much of a knucklehead.
Yeah, we all got our vices.
Yeah, unfortunately, but I guess it saved me from a lot of things that maybe I wasn't mentally prepared for. I guess I got to see the silver lining in that, and I'm able to kind of relate to some degree as far as trauma, and because I had a lot of childhood traumas, but I'm able to come on and do this podcast in honor of my cousin and talk to you wonderful men and women who have served your communities and our country. And it does me a great honor, and it makes me feel good, and it gives me purpose.
Yeah.
Definitely appreciate you being on here. It's been an honor to have people like you to talk to and to allow to have on our platform to speak out and to share your piece and share your stories, and hopefully it allows you to kind of have a little bit of sense of healing in the process.
Yes, absolutely. And I hope that, maybe someone out there can hear my words and follow my way of coping.
Right. We get a lot of positive feedback, and we hear a lot from people that say that we're helping a lot of people. We personally aren't helping people. It's just people hearing other people's stories that are helping people. Guys like you and other guests that we've had. Just letting other people know that they're not alone, and there is help, and you know they're able to move forward. They're able to move on in their lives. They're able to cope health wise,
Yeah.
in a more healthy manner, and they don't have to fall into drug and alcohol abuse, or thinking that they have to end their lives because they don't know how to cope with it. So it's definitely been quite a journey so far. We started this in January 1st of this year, and we have quite a few interviews so far. I think number 20 or 21 just came out. We had one every week. Now we're going to start doing them every week, because we have that many interviews. So it's definitely been an awesome journey, and I'm glad that you come on here and joined us for that journey. And hopefully you can listen in on some of the other podcasts and kind of hear other people's stories and kind of gain some sense of what they've gone through.
Right.
Maybe you can relate.
Yeah, I've listened to some of them.
Some very incredible, powerful stories.
Right. And I want to say thank you to all of them too.
I'm sure they would appreciate that. And just wanted to say thank you for your service. And we thank you for being on here. You've done us a great honor. And, you're very awesome, and you're a really kind, loving person. And I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And that's all I have for today. So I'm going to let you go ahead and get about your business and get back to your family and give them all the love that you need, because, life is short.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, we appreciate it, Matthew. Hopefully we can get back together again and do another interview and see where you're at in the future.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, buddy. You have a good one.
All right.
Thanks
We'll
again
talk to
for
you
being
later.
on. Yeah. Bye.
All right.
Thank you for joining us on 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. Every story we share is a tribute to the courage and resilience of first responders and their families. If this episode impacted, encouraged, or inspired you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who supports first responders. Follow us on all social media platforms at 8158 Podcast for updates. 8158 Stories of Sacrifice is a team effort. Rico brings the stories to life through casting, writing, original music, and editing. Brianne Shipley as production manager, handling booking, social media, graphics, promotion, marketing, website management, and logo design. Please visit our website at 8158podcast.com. For questions, collaborations, or to share your story, our email address is contactus@8158podcast.com. Until next time, let's continue to honor the legacies and remember the sacrifices of those who serve, every brave man and woman on the front lines, protecting and defending us all. This is Rico signing off and honoring 8158.